And it has begun. The snap-pocalypse. Food stamps did not go out. Donald Trump faces a deadline. A judge says you have to fund it. Donald Trump says, okay, how? There's not enough money. In the emergency fund, there's less than what you'd need to actually pay for it, and no mechanism to calculate reduced benefits or a system by which we determine what reduced benefits would be. Another judge has issued a conflicting ruling saying, well, we can't force Trump to do this, but we'll revisit if he doesn't. We don't know what's going to happen, but what I can say is, while it's not definitive, there are some videos popping up that show looting or shoplifting or countermeasures being put in place to prevent mass looting in the snappocalypse, where 42 million people have lost their food stamps. First, we got this video posted by Davis Harris Jr. that purports to show a family looting a store of some sort, screaming no EBT. I don't know that it's real, but I want to highlight this as it's gone massively viral with over 110,000 likes on Instagram, as well as a few other videos. So let me roll this clip real quick.
When you got the whole team helping, no EBT.
Open the door! So you got to
play one more time.
When you got the whole team helping, no EBT.
the door.
Open the door. So it certainly does look plausible that these people are stealing, but we don't know for sure. Just because it's going viral and people are claiming it doesn't mean it is true. But we also have this from EBT of TikTok. Shout out to @EBT of TikTok for basically collecting a ton of these videos. Look at this. A woman is shocked at the anti-looting measures put in place at a Dollar Tree.
I from the Dollar Tree. What is all this? Why the fuck they got shit like, what the fuck? They got all the makeup stuff like this.
Yes, because they're trying to slow down the looters and the shoplifters and make it much more difficult. We have this. Protests. Protests, I kid you not, of people demanding free food.
And no power to the pigs. That's right. Thank you all so much.
Hands off SNAP. Hands off Medicaid. No, apparently you don't because you're government dependent. All right, we get it. Well, wait, there's more. I want to jump to this video right here. So this is, I'm going to mute it because they're doing the Jet 2 holiday meme, which is not relevant. But this is a man in Boston posts dash cam footage of a looter being stopped by an employee outside a Stop and Shop. And I'm going to stress this. We don't actually know that this is looting. In the video, I'll describe it. You just see there appears to be a woman fighting with an employee over something. A bunch of goods fall on the ground. She picks up a bunch and walks off with them. It's just shoplifting. You know what I mean? This stuff happens all the time. Seeing a family run out of stores screaming no EBT, that's something else. Now here you go. Snappocalypse has begun. And so far we haven't seen mass, widespread looting, but people are not too happy.
Yeah, them people really didn't give us our shit. It's like day 2, you know what I'm saying? I get my shit on the first, you know what I mean? I'm first of the month around this bitch. But it's the second and I just went to go peek and I'm like, you know, maybe they would have gave a little sprinkle. But man, them niggas that gave shit. I done took my ass to this motherfucking HEB that they just built over here in Rockwall or whatever by my house. First of all, that bitch is packed as hell. Beautiful store, real nice shit in there, you know, deals out the ass. But I couldn't indulge because I ain't got no yamps. I just spent cash money on 5 items out the store. Mind you, it was only $20, but bitch, I still got bills to pay. I still got motherfucking bills to pay, bitch.
So do I.
I'm not trying to spend it on shit that I'm supposed to be getting food stamps for. Quit playing with me. Like, what the fuck?
Why am I paying for this lady? Why do I have to pay so she can have free food? Why? You know, it is really demoralizing, and only the ignorance keeps you working. The amount of money I pay in taxes is just criminal. Absolutely criminal. But I get it. That's the system, right? Well, we can oppose it, and I can say, lady, I don't want you getting free money for nothing. There's a really funny video where guys like, only in America, you got these people posting videos about how they're not getting EBT and food stamps from their $1,200 iPhones. All right, well, let's go back and start from the beginning and see where we're at. And I'm not entirely convinced where it's going to get to the mass looting proportions. I think you'll just see shoplifting. We're not going to see people storming into the stores and stealing everything. Although, apparently by today, there was this video that the Root was trying to get to go viral. A woman saying to go and rob Walmart at the exact same time. And it's just kind of like, why? That's stupid. You just get stuck in the door, nobody can get out. As we can already see there, people just walk in, walk out as it is. Well, it happened, my friends, on the 1st. Nearly 42 million Americans lost their food stamp benefits. The lapse in benefits could be temporary if the Trump admin complies with a recent court order requiring them to use emergency money to fund SNAP. Well, as of the recording of this video podcast, it's not happened. It has not happened. It may, because a judge says get it done by Monday, unless he can find a way to do partial funding by Wednesday. But Trump's response is, we do not have the legal authority to do this. That's the funniest thing about this game. Okay, listen. Congress needs to approve funding. A judge said, Trump, no, just do it. And Trump's like, what? A judge is ordering Trump to basically ignore Congress. That doesn't make sense. And I'll break it down for you, because I know I can hear all the whinging Democrats being like, there's a contingency fund. We'll go through all of it. Congress failed to reopen the government before funding for SNAP ran out Saturday. A federal judge in an 11th-hour decision directed the Trump admin to use emergency funds to pay for food aid in November. But even that wasn't enough to prevent the immediate lapse of benefits, which officials say could take weeks to resume. I've instructed our lawyers to ask the court to clarify how we can legally fund SNAP as soon as possible. Even if we get immediate guidance, it will unfortunately be delayed while states get the money out. Trump wrote, if we are given the appropriate legal direction by the court, it will be my honor to provide the funding. Well, we've got this. Here's the post from Trump on Truth. He says, our government lawyers do not think we have the legal authority to pay SNAP with certain monies we have available. And now, 2 courts have issued conflicting opinions on what we can and cannot do. I do not want Americans to go hungry just because the radical Democrats refuse to do the right thing and reopen the government. Therefore, I have instructed our lawyers to ask the court to clarify how we can legally fund SNAP as soon as possible. It is already delayed enough to the Democrats keeping the government closed through the monthly payment date, and even if we get immediate guidance, it will unfortunately be delayed. I read the next part already. The Democrats should quit this charade where they hurt people for their own political reasons and immediately reopen the government. If you use SNAP benefits, call the Senate Democrats and tell them to reopen government now. Here's crying Chuck Schumer's office. They say on Saturday, the same judge provided the president with that direction, thanking Trump for his quick and definitive response. Let's pull up the actual documents here. Take a look at this. This is absolutely hilarious. Rhode Island State Council of Churches, National Council of Nonprofit Service Employees International Union, Main Street Alliance, City, you get the point. Those are the plaintiffs, and it goes on. Brooke Rollins in her official blah, blah, blah. Okay, order. Defendants are expeditiously attempting to comply with the court's order while also considering whether any emergency relief is required. Given the operational difficulties set forth in Defendant's Declaration, Doc number 14-2, clarity as to the court's ruling is critical to ensure the defendants can comply with the court's order while avoiding an operational collapse as described in that declaration. Trump saying, of course, it would be my honor to pay it. So here's the order, and here's the legal direction from the court. Having reviewed the complaint, motion, memorandum of law, declarations, and evidence in support of the motion, as well as the papers filed in opposition to this motion, and after conducting a hearing on the matter under Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 65, and for good cause shown, the court finds that the plaintiffs have satisfied the requirements for the issuance of temporary restraining order because 1, plaintiffs have established a substantial likelihood of success in the merits. Plaintiffs will be irreparably harmed absent a temporary restraining order. And 3, the public interest and the balance of the equities strongly favor entry of a temporary restraining order is therefore ordered. In the Consolidation Appropriations Act of 2024, Congress appropriated more than $122 billion for SNAP. Of that sum, Congress directed that $3 billion to remain available through September 30th, 2026 shall be placed in reserve for use only in such amounts and at such times as may become necessary to carry out program operations. Congress maintained those funding levels for the SNAP program in the full year continuing appropriations and Extensions Act of 2025, meaning that an additional $3 billion was put aside in the reserve available through September 30th, 2027. Because of the lack of appropriations for fiscal year 2026, i.e. the shutdown, use of those contingency funds has now become required because available funding is necessary to carry out the program operations, i.e. to pay citizens their SNAP benefits. I'm going to pause there and say, no. The argument from the Trump side is this money is not to be used when Democrats don't want to pay out. The money is supposed to be for disasters. Here's how it works. We've got a normal SNAP for those that qualify. Then, earthquake happens. All of a sudden, you have a massive influx of people who need food benefits. They have money put aside for that reason. The idea that there is an emergency now to pull funding because Democrats and Republicans don't agree on how to reopen the government, and by all means, you can argue Democrats or Republicans are at fault. I personally think Democrats could vote to reopen it at any point, or the Republicans could just end the filibuster. So let's set that aside and say this money is supposed to be for emergencies, not political squabbling. The judge says there is no question the congressionally approved contingency funds must be used now because of the shutdown. In fact, the president during his first term issued guidance indicating that these contingency funds are available if SNAP funds lapse due to a government shutdown. Indeed, everyone always has a political argument. Back then, I'm sure they're going to argue why they should be allowed to do it. In fact, are they talking about Trump in that? Yeah, absolutely. They are saying Trump could do it. Because the contingency funds do not equal the total amount necessary to make November SNAP benefit payments, the government has posited that implementing a partial allotment for the entire country would be exceedingly difficult, highly disruptive, and delayed, requiring a reworking of every state system to recognize and set forward a reduced benefit. Yes, that's correct. Congress created SNAP as an entitlement. The statute provides that assistance under this program shall be furnished to all eligible households who make an application for such participation, et cetera, et cetera. Therefore, to ensure the quick, orderly, and efficient implementation of this court's order, to fulfill the statute's designation of SNAP as an entitlement, and to alleviate the irreparable harm that the court found exists without timely payment of SNAP benefits, the government should, within its discretion, find the additional funds necessary to fully fund the November SNAP payments. Funds available for this include a fund created by Section 32 of the Agricultural Adjustment Act Amendments of 1935 that had over $23 billion in it as of October 8th, 2025. They say it can use that as a percentage of appropriation funds interchangeably for certain expenditures. If the government chooses to make a full payment, then it must do so by the end of the day, Monday, 4th, 2025. And this is the point, ladies and gentlemen. What did they say? What is the news reporting? Issues deadline for November SNAP payments. Now, how many people actually read this? Forgive me, because I know many of you are probably going like, Tim, we are very bored by listening to the court order, but I would like to stress this. If the government chooses to make the full payment, then it must do so by the end of the day, Monday, November 4th, 2025. Well, first of all, it's the 3rd, not the 4th. Judge, don't use AI anymore. I don't know. You made a mistake. Now you've got a problem. Trump's going to be able to say, end of day Monday, November 4th. Well, that date's incorrect. I don't know which date he meant. It also says if he chooses to make the full payment. It is not ordering him to do so. If the government does want to use its discretion to use funds available to make a full payment of SNAP for November, then it must expeditiously resolve the administrative and clerical burdens it described in its papers. But under no circumstances shall the partial payments be made later than Wednesday, November 5th, 2025. So this is hilarious. It's not possible to issue partial funds. And it's probably not the most difficult thing in the world, but I imagine it's going to take weeks. Listen, it's hard enough for me. Okay, imagine this. So I have like a Google ad account, right? And I've got like 5 ads that we run at really low numbers. Just, I don't know what we spend. We might do in all marketing maybe 20 grand. It's a lot, right? Well, not for the size of this business. We really toned down marketing. We're doing a lot of billboard stuff. It is difficult for me to track how these payments go out. And we've got like 4. Not the hardest thing in the world. I got to go in and manage each one. Look how much money is required, how much is going out. Imagine doing this for 42 million people to readjust what is going to be sent out. There isn't just a finger snap, click 65% and hit enter. It doesn't exist. Each individual is going to have a set number, and when you have an automatic payment system, you're not going to be able to go in and change the payment for every single person because payments are different. So how do you do partial rollout? Suppose there's an argument, everyone gets the same amount. That's going to piss a lot of people off. A family with 3 kids that are struggling, and they get $50, and then some 22-year-old guy who just lost his job gets $50 as well. That's the problem. There is no mechanism to do this in a handful of days, especially when the order came out on a weekend. Not to mention, it outright says Trump, if he chooses to do it, and if he can get past these administrative and clerical burdens. Wow. Look at this. If the government does want to use its discretion to use these funds, and if it doesn't, okay, then it won't. That's why it's funny when they're like, the judge issued a ruling, Trump must do it. Please read this stuff, guys. Well, actually, or you can rely on me to read it to you. In summary, the government must make the full SNAP payments by Monday, November 3rd. Oh, now I got the date right. If they chose to use their discretion and not use other funds in additional to the contingency funds to make a full payment, then they must make a partial payment of the total amount of the contingency funds, and they must do this by Wednesday, November 5th, 2025. It is so ordered. This is the craziest thing. I don't know if it's the craziest thing in the history of government, but I'm sure it's happened before. Well, actually, it has. Remember when they were flying Kilmar Abrego Garcia out of the country, and then a judge ordered him to turn the plane around and bring him back? It's like, yo, you don't have the authority to do that. You can't instruct the president on matters of foreign policy and diplomatic negotiations. This is where it gets crazier. Trump literally can't do this thing. He doesn't have the authority to override all these systems. And the judge is ordering him to do it. This is how retarded the federal judges have become, the system has become in this country. Right now, the problem we face, my friends, is quite simple. There is nothing in place for which Trump can pay this out. He can take money from other areas if he chooses to, or he can issue a partial payment. I don't believe Trump has the legal authority to intervene in this matter of congressional dispute. And I would argue against it, even if a judge were to say, Tim, you're wrong. You know why? I'll tell you this. Congress exists for a reason, and we vote for a reason. If you tell the American people Congress does not need to approve spending, the president can just take money from other areas and spend it as he sees fit, then what is the point of congressional appropriations and the power of the purse at all? Trump could simply just say, it's an emergency, give me the money. Now, okay, fine, I guess. Trump, I actually think, should play that game. Because imagine what Trump could do if a judge ruled he can take whatever money whenever he wants and use it for whatever program he needs. Want to build that wall? Now, in the past, Trump has done this. To build the wall, Trump appropriated funds from certain areas and then argue the legality about whether or not Trump could pull contingency funds for military use for the border. He argued he could. I say, okay. Well, right now, what Trump is trying to do is end the filibuster. He truthed this, terminate the filibuster, not just for the shutdown, but for everything else. We will get all of our common sense policies approved. Voter ID, anyone? And we'll make America great again. Remember, the Democrats will do it immediately as soon as they get the chance. Our doing it will not give them the chance. Republicans be tough and smart. The Dems are crazed lunatics. They will not open up our country no matter what, no matter how many people are irreparably harmed. Indeed. Well, we're going to see what happens, I suppose. The judges are saying he has to do it, but ain't nobody got it. And the ruling is actually conflicting in and of itself. Another judge, I believe you've got a Rhode Island and a Boston judge. One judge said they won't order Trump to pay this out, but likely would depending on what the Trump admin does as of Monday. I'm going to say it like this. I do not believe the president has the authority to basically go, Congress, you have the power of the purse and you're in dispute. I'm going to take whatever money I want and do what I want with it. More importantly, I don't think a judge has the authority to order the president to take funds from somewhere else. This is just insane. Checks and balances exist for a reason. Congress is the check on the judiciary and the executive branch. If Congress does not issue the funds, then the judiciary should not be allowed to override Congress and force Trump to do this. Because imagine any other scenario. Imagine Congress says, we're going to pull funding from the federal judiciary.
Okay, not so.
And
No
then the
more
judge
than
says,
remembering secrets
no,
that you once
I
knew.
hereby order Trump to give us the money. Well, now you got a problem. Congress is telling the judiciary, you're not getting the money. Why could they then just override Congress and demand it? So in this instance, it doesn't matter where the money is going. It's a question of whether or not Donald Trump or anyone as president can take money and give it away when Congress hasn't approved it, just because a judge says he has to. The judge's interpretation of this of the current laws is just one judge, and it would be insane for Trump to follow through. Trump's only legal option right now is to appeal and say, if Congress doesn't approve the use of these funds for this reason, the judge can't order it. I think that's checks and balances. And it's going to go to a higher court to check the lower court, and that's what has to be done. I'm going to wrap it up there. Smash that like button. Share the show. Join us at timcast.com. Head over to timcast.com. Click the Join Us button and become a member of our Discord server. Community is our strength, and every day we are fighting against a machine that seeks to divide and conquer. But when you join timcast.com, you help us with the work that we do, fighting back against the lies from the narrative machine, and we are winning. And you'll also join a community of tens of thousands and the Discord server with morning shows, afternoon shows, after shows, VIP backstage hangouts on Friday. Please consider it, because we can't do this without you, and together we are strong. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all in the next segment.
Welcome to Paris. This is the Paris they don't show you on TV.
No, you can't tell me this is Paris. This is Lomé or Côte d'Ivoire, someplace in Africa, bro.
That's Paris? Oh, I can tell by the words. There's a lot of black people there. Yep.
Feels like I'm in Nigeria or Africa or something. What the fuck is this? You like Paris, bro? No, bro.
Wait a minute, so this guy went to Paris to get away? No shot. Oh no.
This is a real Paris.
No. Wow. Paris is full. I don't know. I don't know how a lot of them got there. I have no idea.
You know, Paris.
This is the Paris they don't show on TV. I guess so.
So here is the
Oh my
African
God.
town of Paris.
Wow. Well, there it is, guys. Look at the dent on the guy's forehead. And, yeah, illegally? I mean, I guess so. I mean, I have no idea if these people are here legally or not. I mean, I think probably it's a mix. But, yeah, I don't know I don't know what's going on over in Europe. It sure seems like they have a lot of migrants there. I'll tell you that.
You feel like the UK is becoming an anti-white country?
Yeah.
You're not wrong. If you're a teacher in Wales, you get paid
Welsh government offers $5,000 more to student teachers from ethnic minorities. And this is actually from the government itself? Not just from like some private organization?
£1,000 less a year if you're white. Any other ethnicity and they'll pay you more. The fourth biggest police force in the UK.
Blocks white applicants to boost diversity. Encourages black and Asian candidates to apply early to become police constables before jobs opened up to others.
Banned white people from hiring. The biggest bank in Europe funded £2 million to 30 Oxford scholarships, and guess what are the qualifications to make it in?
Let me see what they were. To be eligible for the Stormzy scholarship, one must have one of the following categories. You basically, okay, so You have to be black, African, or black in one way or another. Yeah, this is, I actually think this is what's going to radicalize people more than anything else, is like this like casual normalization of advantages provided to groups of people that somebody is not a part of. I think that's what really radicalizes people faster than anything else.
The biggest
It's absurd. It is
platform in
absolutely
Europe
absurd.
banned white people from applying for a trainee role. Not one, but 2 members of the Scottish government
Man.
stood up in front of Parliament and complained about how there was too many white people in and about every role and job and position, even when there's 17 times the amount of people of color in UK Parliament today than there was in 1987. The
Yeah, of course.
UK police force has...
See, this is, I think, the reason why you see a lot of white identity politics that have happened now. It's because a lot of these racial groups have been playing identity politics games and racial identity games forever. And now you have people like, you know, Nick Fuentes fans, etc., that are like, okay, well, if you're going to play the game, we're also going to play the game. And now you have everybody that's playing the identity politics game. And I think this is a bad thing. Like, again, I know that identity matters and people want to have their identity reinforced and everything like that. But the moment that you start adding privileges and benefits to being of an identity, well, then you're going into very dangerous territory. And I think that's very clearly what's going on here, right? They might not like it. Yeah, people are not going to like whenever everybody has a racial identity, especially whenever it's the majority race has a racial identity. Because when they do that, they're going to get together and make decisions that are disadvantageous for racial minorities, right? That's what's going to happen. And I think that something like, the American equality, at least to the extent that we have it, can only really exist to the extent that people don't see themselves as a race first. They have to see themselves as Americans first, and then as that race second. And I think that to the extent that they make decisions based off of racial boundaries, you're going to basically have, again, an ethno-state in a long enough time frame, right? That's what's going to happen.
Spent 15 million trying to lower the number of white people they employ.
It's gonna happen,
The Royal
yeah.
Air Force got their emails leaked in which applicants were described as useless white males. God
There's a
forbid
lot
they
of
would
these.
have replaced the word white
Yeah.
with anything else. Non-white people who apply for NHS jobs have their CV shortlisted, so being white means it's slower and less
Yeah.
likely you get the job. White people
Wow.
have become a minority in at least 8 out of 51 English cities, and this
55,
number's kept
yeah.
increasing since 2001.
I-
White
yeah,
British
I
children
hear that,
are
but I
now a
don't know.
minority in 1 in 4 schools. So
Wow.
now they're disappearing from our education system. 50% of all victims in racial attacks since 2006 has been white. Former member of the Labour government, Naz Shah, liked and retweeted a post on Twitter that said white girls who have been abused and exploited by Pakistani men should shut their mouths for the sake of diversity.
This is why I kept saying that I think the EU is going to elect somebody that's really bad pretty soon. I think this is radicalizing so many people. It's radicalizing a lot of people. And I think that by the time everybody realizes it and they cut out doing this stuff, I think it's going to be too late. I do. And I think you can see the reaction, just very, very recently, the reaction to, like, for example, like Ben Shapiro's video that he did yesterday talking about how bad Nick Fuentes was. And it's like Nick Fuentes talking about like all the racist stuff and sexist stuff. And then all of the comments are just agreeing with him. They're just agreeing. They're like, yeah, we actually do feel this way about, like, black people or about, like, Muslims or something like that. And I think that whenever you're in that situation, and they've put themselves in that situation, they've put themselves there. That's it. By playing these games, by doing this stuff, it is totally radicalized people. Absolutely. It's not radicalism. It's dishonest to say it. It's a response and defense to imposition. You're saying that, like, it's not radical because it's just people responding to what other people are doing to them? This is my outlook on it. I think this is radical, and I think they're radical. I think all of this is radical. So, but you're right, is that it is a radical response to a radical action.
Test bosses now have to explain why they hired a white person. 12-year-olds are getting singled out and expelled from school for wearing clothing that celebrates British culture on Culture Day.
Oh, school apologized too. That means they said they're wrong.
The highest paid female footballer in the UK was caught on camera calling a police officer stupid and white. The UK government have attempted to ban the British flag to stop white British people.
I've seen this a lot recently.
Being proud and celebrating their culture, but every single other ethnicity and nationality can do so. Apparently, Britain's Olympic team is too white, and our women's football team. The
She was white
Equality
as well.
Act
Yes.
2010 allows the practice of positive discrimination, which is the
Positive discrimination. That's like dry water.
ability to hire someone of color over a white person, even if they both have the same qualifications.
Spicy
because
mayonnaise.
they are someone of color. The UK justice system was due to implement laws that would make vulnerable members of society, women,
I think this didn't go
Muslims,
through.
people of color, be granted more lenient sentences to account for systemic
That's scary.
violence. Islamic terrorists can complain about jails being too white, and they'll be moved to another jail. So it wouldn't happen the other way around. Save and share this video the next time you get into a conversation with someone that believes white privilege and systemic racism against people of color exists today in the UK.
And I think that the reason why, I mean, this guy's smart for saying this too, because I think that really a lot of people that are minorities in those areas realize and they see where this is going, right? They see how this is radicalizing people. They see how everybody's getting mad about it, etc. And when it gets bad enough, then you are going to see people start popping off, people getting elected that are genuinely racist and being negatively affected. Damn straight we do. Yeah, and I respect this a lot because, again, I think that really it's not about really what identity you are. It's about you don't want to have a system and a culture that allows the denigration of one group of people exclusively, right? And if you have that, you're going to have that group of people that are just very extremely angry. Like, I'll give you a great example, right? I don't know if it's a great example, but it's an example. And it's like a lot of black people now, even here in the United States, have resentment to white people for things that had happened generations ago. Things like slavery or things like Jim Crow or segregation. And the fact is that those things did happen, and there is a generational resentment that builds up over time with groups of people. So it's not like the moment that you get rid of this, all of these problems are going to go away. No, this is something that's going to continue going on, and the people that had to experience this will carry those beliefs forward, and they will teach their children those same beliefs, right? Yeah, nobody hates this more than legal immigrants that did the whole process to integrate with society. Well, yeah. And then because the illegal immigrants are the ones that are getting lumped in with these bad actors. I think that's the reason why illegal immigrants have such a big problem with it, right? And Tony Robinson acquitted for all of all charges under the Terrorism Act. Well, good for him. He was charged for terrorism because he refused to give his phone's PIN number.
What has been the outcome? What has been the outcome? The outcome has been found that
this guy's been. I feel like we've been talking about this guy getting arrested for like 10 years almost.
Police discriminated against me based on my belief and my political beliefs. Now, my grievance now, well, not my grievance. First of all, thank you, Elon Musk. Thank you, Elon Musk, because if it wasn't for Elon Musk, why is it took an American businessman to fight for our justice here and our fight against terrorism charges for journalists?
Yeah, true.
Now, over there in a minute, it's going to come the journalists, the mainstream media. Go back now. If you want to see if you can trust the media, go back now and read the media's. Read what they said about this trial. When I was on trial, read what they said. Read the headlines, read the news that they gave out, and then read the judge's judgment. Right? Because all those journalists sat on that trial, they knew the police acted unlawfully, they knew they acted illegally, they admitted it in court, and none of the journalists told you that. None of them. They were hoping they had another bench judge that would rule against me, and then you, the public, would know nothing. That judge's verdict is a slam down against the police. An absolute... Read what he says, yeah? Read what he says, read about their evidence. It was corrupt, it was unlawful. For me, I'm frustrated still. I should be happy. I'm not happy because I shouldn't be put through this time and time again. I walked out of this court last year at a cost of £53,000.
Well, good for him.
I've just walked out again. This is nearly £100,000 spent on this case. What for?
I think the big problem with all this is the fact that the media misrepresents it. That's the main problem. Like, it's not really about whether, oh, well, is this a a bad thing or a good thing? Like, yeah, obviously it's bad. But, like, whenever you have, like, a media apparatus that's dedicated to misrepresenting facts and information, then I think you have a very very, very big difference and you have an actual real problem. And I think that's very clearly what's been going on here, right? More than anything else. So yeah, and the notifications, yeah, I don't know. Somebody was recording this and that's what happened. And what's it like living in the UK? I can't complain. That's good. No, I mean, I can't complain because I might go to jail. Oh, really? What's the emergency? Someone's telling the truth on Twitter. Well, this is what's happened, right? I mean, good for him. I mean, anytime that somebody gets arrested and, you know, for just saying something stupid or saying something that's considered, you know, against a speech law and they, you know, get away with it, I think that's generally a good thing unless it's like violence or doxing, right? I mean, like, that's my mindset. I mean, I hope that more people see this, and I think it's radicalized a lot of people what's happened, right? Where people are getting arrested for expressing distrust with like mass migration and stuff like that. And that's the way I see it. This is generally why the public sentiment has shifted. We've gone from one news source, however, to many due to YouTube and Twitch. Well, it's because mainstream media misrepresents information. Mainstream media very rarely actually lies, but what they do instead of lying is they misrepresent information in a way that is just totally inaccurate, right? And I think that's the main problem that a lot of people have with it, is that, for example, like, you know, they'll show Joe Rogan talking about, you know, the ivermectin thing, but they'll put a filter over him that makes him look like like he's green. Or they'll show like some guy who's like 28 years old, and this guy was like a career criminal for the last 8 years, but they'll show his high school yearbook photo where he was still a good boy, right? And that will be, again, to misrepresent the person in the public's eye and to make the public angry at the government or angry at the police for shooting this person, right? And I think that's really where a lot of the hostility and the anger comes from. I think that we all know that, like, yeah, the government's going to have bad rules, etc. But why is it that you have a media apparatus that's constantly running cover for them and actively trying to misrepresent what happens? And I think that's the main issue, is that people don't like being lied to. They don't like being misled. They don't like people telling them one thing and then doing something else. It's the framing of it that's the main issue, right? The Trayvon Martin, yeah. Calling George Zimmerman, who is very clearly a Latino, Hispanic man, white also, is just a very, very, very obvious misrepresentation. And I think that like, during like the Trayvon Martin and like, that's whenever it really started, I think that's the point where I think that the public started to really distrust the media on like a mass scale.
This is the penny, officially known as the cent. This coin represents 1/100th of a dollar. In February 2025, President Trump instructed the US Treasury to halt 1 cent production. Why? Well, according to the federal government, it costs nearly 4 cents to produce 1 penny. Plus, it's estimated that there's anywhere from 114 billion pennies in circulation to 420 billion. So it makes sense to halt their production. And technically, we already have enough pennies in circulation, so no problem, right? Right?
And the United States is running out of pennies. Some retailers say President Trump's decision to stop producing the penny earlier this year is starting to affect business.
Earlier this year, President Trump said the U.S. would no longer mint the coin, citing high manufacturing costs. Now there's a shortage at cash registers across the country. Some banks are even rationing them.
Pennies are in short supply after President Trump ordered the Treasury to stop making them.
The company says as a result of President Trump's decision to stop production of pennies, if
you pay in cash, you might not get exact change.
The U.S. is running short on pennies after President Trump stopped production earlier this year, and it's having a real impact on banks, restaurants, and grocery stores. Some businesses now saying they're unable to produce that exact change, and banks are even starting to ration pennies for their customers.
So less than 3 months after the Trump administration stopped minting pennies, and even though there's literally billions of pennies that exist, there's a penny shortage. Damn you, Donald Trump! Or maybe there's a better explanation. In September 2024, the New York Times Magazine published a scathing piece titled, "America Must Free Itself from the Tyranny of the Penny." The author, Katie Weaver, writes, "Most pennies produced by the U.S. Mint are given out as change but never spent. This creates an incessant demand for new pennies to replace them. So the cash transactions that necessitate pennies, i.e. any concluding with a sum whose final digit is 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, or 9, can be settled. Because these replacement pennies will themselves not be spent. They will need to be replaced with new pennies that will also not be spent, and so will have to be replaced with new pennies that will not be spent, which will have to be replaced by new pennies that will not be spent, and so will have to be replaced." In other words, we keep minting pennies because American consumers don't use the hundreds of billions of pennies that have already been minted. Which means that one solution to this crisis would be to make people who pay cash use exact change. You know, with the pennies that they most likely have lying around their homes in drawers or in jars. Retailers could also round each cash transaction to the nearest 5 cents. For example, if a cash purchase comes out to $4.96, the retailer could round down to $4.95. If it's $4.99, they could round up to $5. Problem solved, right? Well, not so fast. The Associated Press writes, "The lack of pennies has also become a legal minefield for stores and retailers. In some states and cities, it is illegal to round up a transaction to the nearest nickel or dime because doing so would run afoul of laws that are supposed to place cash customers and debit and credit card customers on an equal playing field when it comes to item costs. So to avoid lawsuits, retailers are rounding down. While 2 or 3 cents might seem like much, that extra change can add up over tens of thousands of transactions." A spokesman for Quick Trip, the Midwest convenience store chain, says it has been rounding down every cash transaction to the nearest nickel. That's expected to cost the company roughly $3 million this year. That means that each of Quick Trip's 850 locations would lose around $3,500 a year. Cheaper than a frivolous lawsuit, I guess. But there is a potential fix. There's a bill currently pending in Congress called the Common Sense Act, which would require cash transactions to be rounded up or down to the nearest 5 cents. The AP writes, "While the proposal is palatable to businesses, rounding up could be costly for consumers." No, it won't. Let's say that a cash transaction is $1.92. That would mean it would be rounded down to the nearest 5 cents, which would be $1.90. If your transaction was $1.93, it would be rounded up to $1.95. The most you would gain or lose would be 2 cents. So saying that rounding up could be costly to consumers is A, massive exaggeration, and B, shows a complete lack of journalistic curiosity of how rounding up or down to the nearest 5 cents would work in the real world. In 2007, Robert Waples, the Wake Forest economist, analyzed tens of thousands of transactions from a convenience store chain to see whether cash register totals would tend to be rounded up more often than down. The last digit's pretty random, Waples said. Averages worked out in customers' favor about as often as they didn't. But also, the gains and losses in question amounted, in the aggregate, to fractions of a penny either way. In other words, a store would round down cash transactions as much as they would round up, which means that both consumers and businesses would break even. It also means that having a law that would force cash transactions to only be rounded down could be tens of millions of times more harmful to major retailers than it would be to any single customer.
You see that people consider them to be a nuisance, and they just don't bring them back into the store. You see them lying on the sidewalk, people don't even pick them up.
Fact check true.
It was time for an experiment. Photojournalist Crisco Beale and I tossed 100 pennies onto this busy Boston sidewalk and waited. And waited. Dozens of people walked by over a 15-minute period, and not one person stopped to pick one up. When you're literally walking over money, that means it doesn't buy you too much.
Waples, along with groups like the National Association of Convenience Stores, also argue that getting rid of the penny will speed up transaction times at store counters and save us money that way.
You know, fishing into your pocket or your purse to get one when you're doing a cash transaction adds a little time to the transaction, and it slows the line down, and our time is worth money.
So it would make lines move faster, and that's one of the many positives for phasing out the penny. But a lobbyist for Artisan LLC, one of the world's leading coin blank manufacturers, claims that getting rid of the penny would be detrimental.
Mark Weller, director of the Pro Penny Group, Americans for Common Sense, which is funded by a company that produces the metal discs that are used to make coins, argues that getting rid of the penny would cause inflation because businesses would start rounding transactions to the nearest nickel and would more likely try to round up than down.
Nope. That's where the federal law would come in, which would require both rounding up and rounding down.
Businesses have a profit motive, and the fact is it's not going to even out. You can price things in a way that they're going to round up.
Says the lobbyist, who is representing the company that has a profit motive to keep making pennies. But Mark Weller's claims do not live in reality. Katie Weaver points out that while it is theoretically possible that a retailer could see a surplus profit of up to 2 cents on every transaction, the number of variables that need to be precisely manipulated to pull off the feat would require such convoluted mathematical and psychological calculations that it stretches credulity to suppose anyone would bother. In other words, the lobbyist for Big Penny is fear-mongering. I know you're shocked.
Weller says getting rid of the penny disproportionately harms low-income people.
There's billions of transactions that take place under $25, and those are mostly made in cash. And so you're going to have a rounding tax on the people that can least afford it.
But again, this so-called rounding tax would happen during half of cash transactions where you would receive pennies as change. During the other half, a consumer would gain 1 to 2 cents. So the New York Times Magazine asks, who really needs those coins? Mark Weller claims that the poor do, saying that people with relatively low incomes, particularly the young, elderly, and minorities, who use cash more frequently than high-income earners. Also, unbanked Americans who have no other option. Let me guess, Mark. They're also less likely to have driver's licenses and photo ID, right? Sociologist Katie Weaver consulted, whose fieldwork examines the economics of American poverty, challenged this notion. Carrying around bundles of hundreds of pennies to purchase, say, a beverage doesn't seem feasible, said Jacob Faber, a professor at New York University who studies inequality. Sarah Halpern-Meakin, a sociologist at the Institute for Research on Poverty at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, told Weaver that the majority of people with low incomes make cashless transactions on apps like Cash App, for instance. Walmart, the nation's largest private employer, pays employees who do not provide banking info with Walmart-branded debit cards. Plasma banks also distribute payments in the form of prepaid debit cards. Wait, poor people have the capacity to use electronic payments? I can't believe it. It's true that cash usage is highest among households with the lowest incomes. Neither expert suggested that it was either obsolete or unpopular. But if significant numbers of Americans rely on penny coins to make purchases, there is no evidence of it. In other words, Mark Weller of Americans for Common Sense is full of it. And now you know what nonsense he's going to spew when he eventually testifies before Congress against the Common Sense Act. So stay tuned. Anyway, that's it for now. If you want to support the channel, head over to my brand new merch store at don'twalkrun.shop. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in, and hope to see you next time, if there is next time.
Goodbye.
Nobody could be this dumb in real life.
Nothing I dislike more than the politician that sits there and lies to you.
Why does Newsom always look like he just got done sobbing into his pillow because he realized that his Aunt Nancy Pelosi can't buy him the presidency for Christmas? Why does he always look like he's been sobbing? They're literally the party of tears.
I'll just sit there rolling our eyes going, give me a break.
Projection.
Did you legitimately believe that he was capable of serving as president?
They just jump cut to, did you believe Biden could run for president and be president for another 4 years, despite the fact that he was always taking naps, was just mind-blanking during the debate stage, and basically a zombie for the other 4 years of his presidency? So you just said, nothing makes me roll my eyes than a politician that lies to you, and here he is about to lie to us.
Until January of 2029?
Yeah, I think my focus was frankly situational. It was making sure Donald Trump didn't get back into office to experience everything that we're experiencing today. And there was no interaction I had that suggested otherwise.
What do you say to Americans who feel misled by you and other top Democrats?
It's bad when even NBC is calling out the Democrats in their face. They've lost it.
About the mental acuity of President Biden, that they wish you'd sounded the alarm sooner to give way for an open convention?
I'm not going to substitute myself for someone else or for popular opinion. I'm going to express my relationship to my truth with...
My truth means I'm lying. That's it.
The former president of the United States, including at the end of his term, quite literally, in December, which was a masterclass of foreign policy.
He dropped out. He dropped out of the race because he had just blanked out during a debate on national television. Democrats kept on hiding him, saying he's fine. He obviously wasn't. He's saying, my truth is he could, and he's making all these good foreign deals. Lying to our face.
Domestic policy, which I will never forget as we walk through not just the election, but we're walking through the world we're living in. There was nothing to suggest what you just said.
There was no. We all saw during the debate. Nothing. He's just lying to us right now. It's insane.
Or others have suggested in terms of my interaction. That's all I can be.
My interaction, my truth, absolute ridiculous. My truth says BS excuse doesn't rely with reality. He also has cancer. Yeah, exactly. Like, let the old man recover from cancer, get state of the art treatment, and just enjoy retirement. No, they want to march him out there because it's good for the party. They got to beat Trump. Never mind the fact that you're literally going to shed years off that old man's life. And I'm a person that despises Biden. Biden told me he wishes me and my family a winter, a severe illness and death. He wished that upon me. I wish him a speedy recovery from cancer. It's not that hard to be a decent human being. But the idea that he would rather drag him across the finish line to be a politician until he loses his life so they can install their Kamala Harris presidency shows that they're scumbags. And yet, this is him moments ago.
Nothing I dislike more than the politician that sits there and lies to you. And we all just sit there rolling our eyes going, give me a break.
And it's funny because everybody's piling on this, saying, you know, Gavin Newsom dislikes when politicians lie, and then they rolled this little clip right here.
And reservoirs, the reservoirs are completely full.
Yeah, LA Times, State to probe why the Pacific Palisades Reservoir was offline empty when firestorm exploded.
Nothing I dislike more than the politician that sits there and lies to you. And we all just sit there rolling our eyes going, give me a break.
I don't know what he's referring to when he talks about the Delta smelt and reservoirs. The reservoirs are completely full.
Yeah, because we had clips of you saying it just a second ago, and then this one over here is even better from Maze Moore.
Not one person ever in my office has ever used the word Latinx.
So can we finally put that to bed?
Yeah,
we agree.
but where did that even?
No more Latin.
Saying I've never used the word Latinx. He's saying that when he's talking to Charlie Kirk, who he in fact later on lied about afterwards. After Charlie Kirk was the only conservative to sit down and have an honest discussion with Governor Gavin Newsom. When talking to Charlie Kirk, he said, man, my son's a huge fan. He wanted to ditch school so he can come meet you. And then later on, Gavin Newsom, after Charlie Kirk died because they called him a fascist, Newsom said, oh no, my son doesn't watch. He just knew about him. He wasn't a fan. He wasn't that into him. He just wanted to ditch school and, meet him early in the morning. But he wasn't a fan because Governor Gavin Newsom keeps on calling Charlie Kirk a fascist, which got him ended from somebody from Newsom's party, and he's worried of being affiliated with him because that has scary implications for himself too. But here he is lying to Charlie Kirk's face.
I'm like,
Next, everybody.
Well, I just didn't even know where it came from. I'm like, what are people talking about? Impactful this has been on the Latinx community. Latinx community politicians that are banning not assault rifles, but the word Latinx.
Nothing I dislike more than the politician that sits there and lies to you. And we all just sit there rolling our eyes going, give me a break.
I've never seen Latinx. He has a literal montage of him saying that. Yeah, he's debating himself. I love Maze Moore and his account. Go follow him on Twitter. Maze Moore has openly said he has a bunch of more damning clips on Gavin Newsom, but he's going to save them closer to the presidential election when he's trying to run for the Democrat primary. And I'm certain he has content that will sink his presidential ambitions, and it's going to be glorious because this is him. Like Gavin Newsom is such a scumbag, but also he just doesn't have the chops to be a president beyond some place that has insane amounts of ballot harvesting.
Your inventory is full.
You have been one of the most outspoken Democratic voices against President Trump. And part of your tactic is to imitate some of what we see on...
Yeah, that's all he does. He writes all his tweets in all caps. He tries to curse now. He's even seemingly getting a spray tan. Like, he doesn't understand what makes Trump charismatic. He's getting it all wrong and essentially ending his own career for it.
Line from President Trump, so you mimic his all-cap posts, you send out similar memes. Do you run the risk of normalizing
because when Trump started doing AI pictures, Newsom started doing AI pictures too, and it honestly got him in trouble because Trump made AI pictures, his base ate it up, they thought it was funny. Then Newsom makes an AI picture of Trump in a dress, I believe. What was it, J.D. Vance? He put one of them in a dress. And then all of a sudden, he's making fun of Trump in a dress, but then all of a sudden the trans community comes out and says, why is a man dressing up as a woman funny to you? And it's like, he doesn't understand how it's going to make him fall flat on his face every time.
Quite the contrary. The whole expression was to not allow it to be normalized.
I'm not allowing it to be normalized by normally doing it in my day-to-day activities.
It was becoming normalized. All this, the normalization of deviancy across the spectrum of issues, but his communication, he's dressing up as the Pope, as Superman. Hold on, he's putting his face on Mount Rushmore. He's saying, thank you, it's madness.
Oh no, he's making memes. That's ridiculous.
And so I put a mirror up to that madness.
You've been one of the most outspoken.
This always looks like he's been crying. It is sad that's where he's at. But what is it? Ian Yeager says one image defines Gavin Newsom's entire political career. Yeah, I remember seeing this. I screen grabbed it too. It's him walking through, I believe, LA saying like, this is what we're gonna do to clean it up. And you got this black homeless guy reaching out to Newsom as he walks by with his coffee in his suit, just ignoring him. It's like, yep, this is Newsom's legacy in a nutshell. Because all they're really trying to do right now is rig the elections in Congress by redistricting everything. So now Nancy Pelosi, who's his aunt-in-law, is out there trying to essentially campaign for him as president. He's gonna run. He has a vision for the country. If his vision for the country is anything like his vision for California, there's no way this man can become president.
To Jennifer,
It's clear that this governor has a vision for our country. He has knowledge of our country and our state. The state of California, the fourth largest economy in the world.
I like how, what was it, Joe Rogan talked about? He says, oh, I have the fourth largest economy in the world. I have the best tech sector in the country. I have all these jobs and everything. It's like, yeah, it's all the things that were there before he got here. It's all the things you get by default by being next to the ocean and having Hollywood here. But I believe it's the tech sector jobs is now at the same level of like the 90s. Like, he's totally decimated Silicon Valley. He's decimated people from filming in Hollywood. He's gotten rid of everything, and yet he tries to campaign on his successes, which is just the things he got by default.
Gavin manages that way, with great dignity. He has strategic thinking about how to get things done, and that is what has brought us together here. When this opportunity occurred, Gavin had a plan. He's a man with a plan.
And yet they can't illustrate that plan to us other than the idea that they're going to redistrict California to smithereens. But, like, this is her trying to promote this. Actually, this video is way too long, but no. Saying, when Texas did what Texas did, people said, oh, no, we can't do that. Two no's don't make it right. It's not two no's. It's self-defense for our democracy, saying we know what we're doing is wrong, but we're going to redistrict California. So you have, look at these skinny little districts to put all the rural parts of California, combine them with deep blue coastal elite cities to make it just all Democrat, because they need 5 more Republican seats to fight the Republicans in Congress. But you see this over here where there's parts of the country that are already gerrymandered to the max. Like, you see this over here. What is this? New England. They own 11 out of the 12 U.S. House seats in Jersey, but all of the House seats in New England, where it's like, you look at New England, they have all the congressional seats, but then if you look at the election, Maine, 45% voted for Trump. New Hampshire, 47% Trump. Vermont, 32%. New York, or not New York, that's not it. Massachusetts, 36%. So you have millions upon millions of people that voted for Trump in those areas, and yet they get zero representation in Congress. And they're saying, we're saving democracy. You know, she keeps on going out there. We're getting 5 seats back in Texas. I mean, we're getting 5 seats back in California to defend ourselves from Texas, which has nothing to do with representing the American voter. Nothing to do to represent conservatives in New Hampshire and Maine, or even in California, and yet they're saying we're saving democracy by cheating. Ridiculous.
I won't exaggerate. And Mitas? Gone?
You have saved a few survivors.
How can I help you? Athena protect you.
Thank you for helping with our plan.